Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. So as you probably gathered, this tutorial is on the first and second guitar solos for the live acoustic version of Eric Clapton performing Layla. That's a bit of a mouthful. If you want the tabs, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/JBF Music. So this is the part lesson here where I go through the solo bar by bar. I'll highlight anything you might want to watch out for, some tips and tricks. This is just for those who want to get into the smaller kind of final details and get this as authentic as possible. It's one thing learning the notes, but it's another making it sound really great. And on a side note, if the slow playthrough was still a bit too fast, just adjust the speed with the YouTube settings cog. I use that all the time, it's fantastic. And if you like this format where I've done the full speed downloads, the slow ones with a tab and no talking, followed by this explanation, please do let me know with a like and a comment. These sorts of interactions really are a huge boost to the channel. Make sure to give subscribe a click and enable all notifications as well to get the type of content you want to see in your feed. Now, I don't have access to the masters for this track or the stems, I've just worked this out by ear. As far as I can tell, it's a pretty accurate transcription. Any corrections are more than welcome, please just pop them in the comments. Alright, so in terms of rhythm playing, a thinner pick to most people will sound better for strumming chords when you're on an acoustic guitar. However, a floppy pick can make soloing, particularly kind of faster or more intricate runs, a lot more difficult and harder to play consistently. So with that in mind, you might want to experiment with your pick thickness for this one. Thicker ones tend to be generally easier to play with, they don't bend against the strings, they don't kind of flex against it, and therefore they have less of a randomized factor. The thinner ones do give that kind of lovely snap as they bend over the string, but will be a bit more demanding for the kind of faster or precision playing, particularly that we get in the solo. So the first thing to say here is that Clapton does play with the timing quite a lot. He's kind of playing with where he is in relation to the beat. There are some tricky parts here relating to the timing, so I'll break the solo down into what I see as manageable phrases and try to make sure to listen to the original as well for any nuances that I might have missed out. As a side note, I did use the live video as well to get a reference and try to get the fingerings as accurate as I could. If you find a better way or one that's easier for you, by all means just go for it. You can always relearn a different fingering later. The first thing I think with any solo is kind of get the nuts and bolts of it down, get it where it's comfortable, and then start refining it. With our first phrase here, we do start on a slightly odd beat of the bar. We're starting on the and of 3 and going into a triplet run. And if that sounds like nonsense, just listen to the original song and kind of get a feel for where he comes into the bar. So this is like a nice little D kind of minor arpeggio with the second in here. You might want to sweep through this using all downstrokes. You might want to alternate pick. Totally up to you. We've got one of these really fast little trills where we're just going 5, 6, 5. And then the next thing that's noteworthy is where you can see that little squiggly line there on the 7th fret here. That means add vibrato. Whenever you see that, add vibrato. And generally if this is a sustained note, there's going to be some vibrato because it just makes it sound a bit better. The next thing we've got here is some grace notes. So we're going... You're going to 5 to 6, and then playing 6 again and doing a really quick slide to the 8. 6 to 8, plucking them. Another one of these grace note slides, so we're playing the 8th fret really quickly. You don't really hear it, it's not a slow slide. It's like the other one, it's nice and fast. The next bit here is where another example of where the timing is quite difficult. He's done this in 2 bars at the start, it's not making life easy for us as you guys. But there's a slight pause before you play this 8th note. And here, rather than play the 10th fret twice, we're just going to play it once and slide up to the 13th, right? So this intro here. Into bar 4. So to break that down, we've got the 10th to 12th here. A little trill, so what I'm doing is playing the string once, hammering on the 12th, pulling off the 10th. These are really fast, so you just want to kind of get the speed up on that. Pull off there, and then here what it sounds like to me is a hammer on pull off, sliding down to the 9th fret, then picking these next notes. We've then got kind of the same as we had in the first bar, for the first 3 notes. But instead of doing this little trill that we had before, now we're just playing the 6th fret and pulling it off to the 5th. Again, the timing feels a little bit weird for these last 2 bars here. So because we're kind of going out of a swung time for the start of bar 6, these those 3 notes are a little bit, they feel a little bit slower, a little bit kind of more staggered. We're then sliding really quickly from the 7th fret. Again, this is a grace note, you don't really hear it, down to the 5th. and then back up to the kind of swung, slightly faster feel for these notes, rounding it up with kind of very straightforward quarter notes. Here as well, there might be a slight drop in tempo in the track as well, so just watch out for that. As a side note as well, watching the video, Clapton's using an awful lot of downstrokes, and if you're playing an acoustic solo, this is sometimes easier to do because you can really get the consistency. You know you're going to nail the note every time. You know, in terms of technique, it's probably not the best thing to do, but in terms of consistency and getting a good sound, I really don't see too much of a problem with it. If you've got any strong opinions of that, do let me know in the comments. It's always good to hear different ones. So on to solo number 2 now, and we're starting off with this really cool little double stop. What we're doing here, I don't want to delve into the theory too much, but things that pop out at me I'm going to mention in passing. We're outlaying a D minor chord, but in a really cool little double stoppy way. So you got... So a way to think of this is you've got this double stop twice, the 7th fret by itself, double stop 3 times, this fret again, and then the double stop once. So you're playing it essentially twice, 3 times, and once. It's not the most ideal way to count things, but to just kind of get in the bag initially, it's not a bad way at all. So it sounds like he's adding some slight vibrato on these. Or it could also just be a subtle bend on this 6th fret here. So rather than just playing it straight, particularly for those 3 in the middle there, you want to get this middle finger, kind of add in a little bit of a quarter tone bend. You can vibrato the whole thing as well, which sounds fine too. A bend's probably slightly more authentic. We then come down the pentatonic scale, the blues scale. Again, you want some vibrato on this 5th fret. So what we're doing is pulling off the 5th to the 7th. Then we have 7, 6, 5, which we're sliding down to 3. Playing the 5th fret, pulling it off to the 3rd. And as I say, this vibrato on the 5th fret. We do this really nice little pickup by finishing off on the 3rd fret here. And then this is a fantastic bit here. We're doing another great little double stop, and we're sliding into it from a semitone. So you basically want to hold down the 13th and 12th frets on the G and B strings respectively, and you don't really hear this little chord, you just slide in. So what you're doing is playing this little thing and sliding up a semitone, then playing it twice more. And we play that essentially 6 times. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would recommend counting it in groups of 4. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. In terms of learning kind of music, if you know a little bit of music theory or you've got a passing interest in it, that way you're counting the beats in the bar, and it is a better habit to get into than trying to count numbers beyond 4. You know, not always the best idea. Anyway, we continue this with that little lick there. So when we've slid into here, this finger is already in position for this 14th fret. The 13th and the 15th, provided you've been using your 1st and your 2nd fingers like I did there, that'll be no problem, that's already in position. And we've got a grace note here, so this 14th fret, we're playing it really quickly so you almost don't hear it, and sliding down to this 12th fret, down to the 10, and then back up to the 12. And if we string those bars together, okay, next up we're starting on this 10th fret on the G. We play it once with a kind of a tiny bend here, just a microtone bend. And then I've put a little cross note in parenthesis there. I don't think there's really a muted note here, but there's some sort of slur going on where he plays the bend and then plays it again. I think it's maybe, he was going for a bend, but something, you know, maybe the string got in the way of the fret or hit the pick or something. So you get 2 of those. Then we're just kind of going up the scale. Then to this 12th fret. Doing a little trill, this 10, 12, 12, so hammer on pull off. And then just kind of coming down, picking all these notes. So that phrase. And I'll slow it down. Now this next bar, this one took me quite a while to get down. This is a very strange rhythm you got. So if we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll slow it down a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this is one you might want to loop a few times, go around it, just make sure you get it in the pocket. If you kind of mess up one of these phrases with the odd timing, it can throw the solo out, so just make sure you get that one in the bag. Then things go a bit more back to normal. So the only thing noteworthy here is that we're hammering on that 7th fret to the 9th. Then kind of a revisit of the theme. So you got that 5th fret, then you got these 2 7ths here. 5 to 6, little trill. So by revisiting the theme, what I mean is that we did at the very start of the solo, that solo 1. Obviously it's a different rhythm, it's the same sort of melodic idea. And then we're just kind of coming down the blues scale with this little kind of turnaround, if you want to think about it that way, going between there. So those bars. So though we've ended on this 5th fret on the A string, on the next bar we're all the way up in the 13th fret on the E. So you might want to add in a bit of a slide here, just to get there. You don't necessarily need to do it, but if it happens it's not going to sound bad or anything. So again, this isn't really a full bend, you kind of want just a quarter tone, maybe a semitone at the most. And kind of to play this quite staccato, you don't want... Staccato is kind of short and snappy. You want that bend just to kind of pop like that. There we go. So what you're doing there, just going up that scale. And then you've got another grace note. So I'm playing this 10th fret and really quickly hammering on the 12th. So. Then we pluck the 10th normally, down to that 13th, a 10. And then this really cool thing going to the blues note here. Back to this note. You might want to add some vibrato in here. I think I might have neglected to put that on the tab, for which I do apologise. We're then coming in again, and we're kind of missing a beat here in the bar. Some really nice use of space he's using in the solo as a side note. That one, you definitely want vibrato on that 10th fret. And again, this bend, you don't want it to be a full tone. You just want a kind of bluesy quarter tone, semitone thing going on. Then we've got these notes that I've put in parentheses like this. I'm not entirely sure if they're there. It might just be a bit of kind of unwanted fret noise. But for authenticity, I've tried to keep it as accurate as I can. So you just kind of a crosshead note. And then we've got the 13th fret on the B. The B string. Then this little thing. So you're just pulling off the 15th to the 13th. 15th. Again, you want this to be staccato here. 15 again. And then the 13th. With some vibrato. It could be a bend here, but sounded more like vibrato to me. We have these next two notes here, the 14th to the 15th fret, going across the G to the B strings. These kind of lead into the next phrase, so I'm just going to put them to the side for now. So a recap rap from the start of that bar. So like I say, we've got these notes, and then we're kind of ascending further. Now, if you don't have a cutaway like I do, this might become quite difficult up here, but it will be achievable, so just bear with it. You're hammering on the 12th to the 13th, playing the 15th usually. And again, this is a kind of another staccato bit. Staccato is a very effective thing to use on an acoustic guitar because we don't have the same sustain that we get on electric, so a good way of making things pop is to play them kind of short and sharp and keep it sweet. So just those notes normally, and then those two. Again, this is one where you want to watch the timing. So it feels a little bit disjointed there. The best thing to do really is to listen to the demos I've done and get a feel for it, and listen to the original track as well, because when the backing band's on in context and you can feel where the pulse is, it's a lot easier to internalize these things. We're kind of coming down the scale here. We've got this 10th fret, the 13th being pulled off to the 10th. So you'll probably recognize the pentatonic. A little bit of vibrato on this 12th fret because we hold it for longer. I really like this little lick here as well. It's quite unusual for a pentatonic thing, but still fits the context very nicely. Like it's not a traditional blues lick is what I mean to say, but it still sounds really cool. So you got this 10th fret up to the 13th on the B, back down to the 12, then to finish it off. So the only noteworthy thing really is pulling off that 12 to the 10 at the end of the bar. So if I go from, remember in the previous bar we had the 14 to the 15, going from the G to the B, if I go from that bit, the next bit here, so I'd thought there was more going on here than there was, but having watched how he fingers it, it gave me a better idea as to what's going on. Again, this might not be totally spot on, but it sounds right to me. So we've got this double stop, the 10th fret on the B and the G strings. Then you want to go down, playing them both simultaneously again, the 9th and the 10th. We have the second double stop with the 9th and the 10th again. Except here you'll notice I've slid it out and also put a kind of a crosshead in parenthesis. It sounds like there's a slight bit of string noise going on here that I tend to replicate by just hitting the string. I think it's just kind of something that's been picked up though. Not necessarily intentional, but again, let's just try and keep it authentic. So just that kind of thing. And then you're sliding from the 8th fret to the 9th, playing the 9th again and hammering on the 10th. So this slide from the 9th, from the 8th to the 9th, it's one of those grace notes again, it's really quick. That one's a normal hammer, the 9th to 10. Then we want a kind of a position shift here, probably using your first finger for the 7th fret. And then position shift properly here, using your first finger for this 5th fret. And then what we're doing is playing the 7th, 6th sliding down to the 5th. And this is another one where it sounds like there's an extra little percussive hit here, so you can mute the string with your finger, with your palm, it doesn't really matter too much. It could be the open fret, you can lay this finger down, and then you've got this 3rd fret bend to finish it off. Now the next two notes in parenthesis, the open A and the 3rd fret, they're not in the solo, they're in the backing guitar, but it leads so nicely back into the next chord, the A. So I just decided to put them in, because if you're playing this you probably want to lead back in, and that just sounds really cool. Going from the double stops in bar 24. And again, let's recap that, and once more I'll go from the 14th to 15th fret that we had in the previous bar, would be bar 21, just to lead into this phrase, because it's a bit easier to kind of internalize going from there. And again, if you don't want to put these notes in, totally up to you, but I think they sound just awesome. Those were the main acoustic guitar solos in Layla by Eric Clapton. If you've enjoyed this, you'll probably also like my acoustic Come Up and See Me solo, or these iconic solos here. But yeah, hit subscribe to keep up to date with the channel, leave me a comment, share it with your fellow musicians, and enable notifications by ringing that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.